Hey YouTube, got another Axis and Allies 1914 video for you. And for this video I wanted to continue the theme of taking a high-level look at each country and just the things that I think are important to keep in mind. As a reminder, we are not going to be considering exact purchases, exact troop movements. We're not going to say, well, move 2 of these guys here and 3 of them over there, buy a fighter, buy a navy, do these things. We're just going to be looking at general things that you want to keep in mind. And for this video, we are on the country of Italy. So there are a couple things that you want to keep in mind. Typically, Austria will attack Venice. Austria will more than likely attack Tuscany. Sometimes Austria attacks Albania, and sometimes it does not. If it does not, you want to be working closely with France, because France can come in, bring in Albania on your side, and get you some units there that you can cause havoc against the Austrians on your first turn. If the Austrians do attack Albania, then that isn't an option, but hopefully you can convince France to help you out along here, maybe take Tuscany back, like we talked about in a recent video about ways of forcing the Austro-Hungarian Empire to fall quickly. If nothing else, if France will not help for some reason, and really there's little reason for them not to, because the troops they would use are down here in North Africa, you'll still want to take Tuscany on your first turn. That way you can quickly move units up to Venice. You can reinforce from Piedmont on your first turn, but the guys in Rome can't get up there, and the extra infantry in Naples can't get up there if Tuscany is in enemy hand. So it's a really good move for Austria. Austria pretty much should always do that. I can't think of a good reason they wouldn't. Occasionally I've played games where that doesn't happen, and that's fine, it's player discretion. But when I'm playing Austria, I will always attempt Tuscany. I'm always going to end up contesting it, and should be able to take it with a coastal bombardment and a couple units. Now, elsewhere in the world, if for some reason Austria didn't attack Albania and France didn't move in, you can always take it with your transport here. You don't even have to move the transport. You can either pick up the guy from Naples or pick up the 2 guys from Libya and put them here. I think it's a much better move for France to take it. The production does go to you, Italy, and you get units here to start with. Puts you in a much better position. But if push comes to shove, yes, of course, you can take it, get an extra couple production, threaten Austria's kind of southern flank there. They are going to probably have units in Serbia just because they have to attack it on the first turn. So they're probably, Trieste over here is probably going to be defenseless. If they don't leave it defenseless, that's fewer units they put into Venice, which is still good for you. In terms of your units down here, you're probably going to either try and move them up, either to Albania or into Italy to help on that front, or move them over to Egypt and either help against the Ottomans or start moving them down here to help take Africa. There's not a whole lot going on down there, and assuming Austria attacks you in Venice, which it's 95% chance that it's going to, you're going to want to devote all your resources there, aside from maybe an infantry or 2, or a unit or 2 you might send to Albania, or maybe send down to North Africa if you have a strategy down there. But if you lose Venice, you are going to have an extremely difficult time hanging on, because you have very limited production unless France really steps up. You're going to lose either Tuscany or Piedmont, and the Austrians really are able to hit both because they've got their transport over here. If there's no artillery defending Tuscany, they can easily get a couple units there. They can also attack it from Venice, and you're going to have to defend either Piedmont or Tuscany. If you try to defend Tuscany, it leaves you open down here. I'm sorry, if you try and defend Piedmont and leave Tuscany vulnerable, it completely opens you up down here. Because remember, Tuscany borders Naples, so now both Rome and Naples are threatened if Tuscany falls. Piedmont is worth 3 production, though, so if you lose that, you're still in a lot of trouble. And that hurts France a lot, because now France is threatened in Marseille and Burgundy. So you really do not want the Austrians getting through Venice. So you're going to want to pump everything you possibly can into Venice to either even the scales or potentially, depending on how Austria divvies up its units between you and Russia and maybe the Ottomans, down here in the Balkans, that you either have an equal or upper hand. Because if you can secure complete control over Venice, now Austria is in a position where it has to defend two territories, Triolia and Trieste over there, which is going to be difficult for it to do, assuming that it still needs units over here to face Russia, which it more than likely will for till at least turn 3 or 4. So as Italy, you just need to make sure that you got Venice under control. Send as much there as you can. If you can get help from France to keep Tuscany in your hand so that on your turn you can move up more quickly and you don't have to make a pit stop in Tuscany, that is great. That really helps you out a lot. If you can also get them to help you take Albania, that's going to help put major pressure on the Austrians. That is huge. Your navy down here, just always keep, especially on turn 1, because the Ottomans are going to have their hands full on their turn 1. It's very easy for them to miss something and leave themselves open either in Smyrna in here or Ankara over here, and depending on what else is going on, you could potentially knock them into economic collapse on their, so that'd be their second turn because they've already taken their first turn. And with France having some units over here, Albania, maybe in Tuscany, they can either use those to help you, or they could pick them up, like the ones in Tuscany, or Albania if any of them still remain there, and they could potentially take the others. So let's say the Ottomans leave Ankara and Smyrna open because they're so busy trying to do everything else. Between you and France, you could potentially take both of those territories. 3, 4, 5. England's going to have that. That's 6. Russia and England will probably have that. That's 9. That's political collapse. Ottomans are out of the game turn 2. Now, depending on whether you check for political and or economic collapse at the beginning of the turn or at the end of the turn, that could come into play. You want to make sure that you know which variant you are using and act accordingly, because if you're playing that is checked at the end of the turn, then you want to make sure that you drop off enough to take it and keep it contested when the Ottomans counterattack. If you are playing that is the beginning of their turn, then it doesn't matter as long as you put a unit there and take it. Well, then at the beginning of the Ottomans' turn, it's in enemy hands. You could also pay attention and see if there's anywhere that you can contest, like if you can contest Constantinople or something like that. That would almost surely knock them into economic or political collapse. Again, assuming that you're playing at the beginning of the turn versus the end for that economic or political collapse determination. Hope you enjoyed this video. I have a couple more in mind, the end of the U.S., and then that tank video, the special request, so I'll get those up shortly.